In this lesson, we'll learn how to use the natural bristle brushes, air brushes, and erodible tip brushes included with Photoshop. Okay, great. So I've got another empty document open here. It's simply the Lesson 29 Begin file. And go ahead and grab your brush tool for me. It's the keyboard shortcut B. Now, when you come down here and you choose a brush preset, you'll notice that there are a number of different icons here. So icons like this, and even if you come down here and you get sort of a little preview of what the brush tip looks like, those are fairly standard Photoshop brushes. But you'll notice every once in a while we come across brushes like these that actually look distinct and different. They look like a little brush tip. Now, these particular brushes, let's grab this one maybe. As soon as I grab that, this little thing right here appears. This is our bristle brush preview because the brush that we selected is one of the natural bristle brushes here inside of Photoshop. So let's just come down here and use our color picker to maybe choose a color. Maybe something like that. And you can see here, let me just turn that off for the moment. As I come in and I paint, Photoshop is actually trying to mimic natural bristles on my canvas. Now, this bristle brush preview right up here, you'll notice here that as I take my stylus and I begin to kind of move it around my Cintiq that I'm using, as I tilt it various directions, that bristle brush preview is actually picking up on that. So it's very much like you're holding a traditional brush. So now this bristle brush preview can be moved around just like so. We can actually come in here, and if I zoom out on my canvas so you can see the buttons, there's actually a button to shrink it down a little bit, or you can close it out altogether. So we'll go ahead and leave that up there. Now, this particular type of brush becomes incredibly useful when you apply something like this to it. Now, what this does is it allows my tablet to control the opacity based on the pressure of my stylus. So you can see here I can begin to paint very lightly, and I get light strokes, but the harder I paint, the more opaque my paint gets. Now, there are sort of a totally different set of attributes for this type of a brush. Let me just hit Control Backspace and fill my canvas with white. And let's come up here and tap on this button here, which will open our brush panel. Now, inside the brush panel, this brush tip shape portion, right around in here is where we're going to see a lot of different settings for this type of brush. So this is going to control the shape of the brush. Now, basically, each one of these little icons are using a different shape of brush. So this one right here is sort of a fan brush. You can kind of see how that looks a little bit different. Inside the bristle qualities area, we can begin to control how many bristles. You can see sort of like this. We can actually control the length of the bristles. We can control the thickness, the stiffness, and the angle. And of course, we still have our spacing setting down there. So you can see here how that begins to look. Really, this becomes all about kind of configuring this brush to work the way you want it to. So maybe we're coming over here and we're painting with some of our different colors from our swatch panel. So, like I said, these brushes try to mimic natural media, not necessarily a specific type of paint, but more so the experience of holding a traditional brush in your hand and giving you more traditional settings that are akin to the types of brushes that you can actually acquire in the real world. So, now inside our brush presets here, I want to scroll down because there's a little different type of brush as we get to some of these. This one right here looks sort of like a pencil. Let me go ahead and grab that one. And you'll notice that the brush tip shape settings actually change. Let me go ahead and just clear my background out again with a Control Backspace. Now, this one right up here is known as an erodible tip brush. And that means simply that the tip of this brush is going to erode the more we use it. So if I come in here and really start going after this brush, I'm just going to do a bunch of scribbles here, see if I can get that tip to wear down. You should see up here in the bristle brush preview kind of the tip. Let me just kind of rotate that around so you can see that. You can see the tip is starting to flatten out. It's starting to erode. So again, basically what that means is we can start to use that eroded area as kind of a a flat edge, if you will, as we're beginning to draw. So you can see here. Let's come in and grab maybe a different one. We can even come in and grab, that's actually a bristle brush. Let me come in and make these a little bit larger so we can see what we're looking at here. There we go. All right, great. So you can see there's a couple different pencils here. Now, inside the settings for these bristle brushes, or rather these erodible brushes, if we erode the tip down to the point where it's actually not allowing us to create the type of strokes that we want, we can actually come in here and sharpen the tip just simply by hitting that button right there. And it'll actually reset the tip over here. And you can see here we're back to, in this case, I'm drawing sort of with the corner of this, and it's actually producing kind of a thin stroke. But the more I begin to draw with this, you'll notice my stroke is getting a bit thicker. So if I come over and sharpen that up, I'm again back to that thin, nice little corner that I'm drawing with here. So again, we can actually come in and adjust the shape of these erodible brushes as well. You can see this one's erodible square. We can use an erodible point, flat, round, triangle, and that one may be a little hard to see, but it is a triangular shaped tip, as well as custom here. So again, these are the erodible tip brushes. Kind of a cool feature here. We can actually even control the softness of those. I'm going to go ahead and control backspace here to clear my background layer out again. And I want to show you one other type of brush here inside of Photoshop that's really trying hard to mimic natural media. And if we come back over here, you'll notice that some of these look like airbrushes here. So I'm going to come over and select that one. It over here selects this guy over here. And we'll just select a little different color, maybe this orange. And with this particular type of brush, again, it's trying to mimic an actual airbrush. So in this case, you can kind of see how that, as I move the airbrush around, how that's starting to kind of thin out in areas, and it's starting to kind of thicken up. It's also producing kind of a jagged edge with this particular airbrush. So again, let me come over here to something like, we'll do small list view. So I can come in and I can show you the names of these, because the names become increasingly important because the icons look very, very similar. So we have here a a soft, low density grain, and you can kind of see what that looks like here. If we come over and select, you can see there's a hard, low density grain. And we have things like soft, high density grain. Again, lots of different types of airbrushes that you can experiment with here. So you can see here as I sort of move my cursor to kind of a straight up and down position, it kind of produces a stroke like that. But as I begin to tilt it, that's when sort of the magic starts to happen with these brushes. In this case, we're starting to get that nice little splatter out to the side, because that's the direction my airbrush is tilting away from. So that's where the natural kind of the fall off, or the spray from the airbrush is going to go. Again, we have things like hardness, distortion, granularity, splatter size, things like that we can begin to control here to really kind of create our own unique type of a stroke with this airbrush. So again, these are things that you should experiment with. If you're not planning on doing any kind of painting inside of Photoshop, then these may be brushes that you ultimately never touch. But maybe if you're a traditional painter coming over and trying to begin painting digitally, these are some tools that maybe they're going to be very similar to some of the tools that you use in the real world. So in this lesson, we've learned how to use the natural bristle brushes, the airbrushes, and the erodible tip brushes here inside of Photoshop. Now, at this point, I want to kind of move on and begin to show you how Photoshop has some really great tools for repairing various parts of an image. So in the next lesson, we'll start learning about these by learning about the Spot Healing Brush.